Okay, trustees, we are live. We are recording. Phone lines are opened. Go for it.
I'd like to welcome everybody to the regular meeting of the East Hampton Town Trustees for June 23rd, 2025. And I'd like to open with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Allison, could you do roll call for us, please?
Surely. John Aldred.
Here.
Francis Bach.
Here.
David Cataletto.
Here.
Patrice Dalton.
Here.
Ben Dollinger. Tim Garneau.
Here.
Jim Grimes. Celia Josephson.
Here.
William Taylor.
Okay, thank you. All right, we'll start with public comment. Matt, do we have anybody on the phone lines?
You have 0 calls on the line. Thank you.
Okay.
Actually, I'm on the line.
Sorry, Kimberly is on the line.
Who's on the line?
Kimberly Party.
Okay.
Yes, you do have a few on Zoom, but you don't have any on the phone lines.
Okay. All right, Kim, we'll get to you in one moment, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Susan, would you like to address the board?
I think my architect is on Zoom and he is going to. But if you have any questions, I'm here and I'm
Okay,
glad
is
to.
Alex on Zoom?
Yes,
Alex Curley.
but he has to unmute and show his face.
Hey, this is Alex Curley. I'm here on Zoom.
Hi, Alex, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. So, let's see. You're here to speak to us about a dock for Susan Lehman at 7 Outlook Avenue, correct?
Yes, that's true.
Where do we want to
So
start?
just to give you... Hello?
Hello, we're here.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes. Yes. You there, Alex?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
You sound like you're breaking up a little bit.
Alex, you there? All right.
I mean, I can tell you what it.
Yeah, so why don't you do it? You're here.
We received a notice from you all right before our hearing for a natural resources special permit, saying that the dock might not be consistent with the dock on your records, and we'd like to reconcile that. Alex has submitted photographs that were taken from Google. I've never changed the dock. It's exactly the same as it's been for 12 years.
12 years.
And if there's a problem, we'd like to fix it and get going with that.
There's no problem. Yeah, Susan's in to the ZBA for a rebuild of the house. And the dock became like, questioned to the ZBA because of our dock inspections and the notice she got. Her inspection showed that there were structures that we're now considering our jurisdiction that past trustee, boards didn't take into consideration, because we're now considering our jurisdiction to be to the high tide mark. A fixed platform and a ramp and what's in the water, part of a marine railway, are now being considered, under our dock regulations for the charges. So that's all been sort of rectified, I guess you might say. And I think we can Susan filed an application with us as we were asking all dock owners whose docks are a little bit different than our records for authorization to continue with the new measurements. And she's done that. So, I mean, I'm comfortable making a recommendation that we accept that application and we can send that information to the ZBA. They have a meeting tomorrow night, so hopefully everything will be clear with them after that.
Okay, I second it.
So this is just a discrepancy between measurements of the structure.
It's, you know, the old records only charged for length of the floating docks.
Right.
Now we're claiming jurisdiction to the high tide line, whatever falls within that. And some of the fixed structures that led to the, and still lead to the floating docks fall within that, line. So those will be added to the structures on our records.
And you're in agreement?
Absolutely.
Okay. All in favor?
Especially with the idea of recommending the board.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thanks, Susan. We're good to go.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming in.
Thank you. And now you get the place to yourself.
Thank you, Susan.
Okay, if you look in your packets at the very back with the town resolution,
How about the 39 Fireplace Road, is that?
well, Kim is on the line,
Oh,
so.
okay, so we only want to do.
So we're going to do the first resolution here, Peconic Land Trust.
Okay.
41 and 47. I got a call from Rick Whalen earlier today about this. Is a group of buyers or partners looking to purchase this property and include CPF funds. Town is going to hold a hearing next week. Kim, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you. Yeah, so I'm just here to ask you to consider writing a letter of support in connection with a project that we've been working on with Peconic Land Trust over the past few years. It's the preservation of about 5.5 acres on the north side of Georgica Cove. Peconic Land Trust has been working really closely with the neighbors to come up with private funding for this acquisition, as well as public funding for the preservation. And the Peconic Land Trust is in contract right now to purchase the property. And the plan is to purchase the property and simultaneously sell an easement to the town and the village to preserve these parcels in perpetuity, which would add to the assemblage of protected land on the north side of the cove there. It's currently about 13.5 acres that's protected, and this would add another 5.5 for almost 20 acres of protected land on the cove, which, as you know, is always compromised. So not having any development there would be not only advantageous aesthetically, but would really contribute to the health of the pond. So we're asking if you would consider writing a letter of support. There is a public hearing on this on July 3rd. So we would need a letter before that or somebody to speak at the hearing.
I'm all for this.
I have a visual if you want me. Did you want me to share the screen so you can see what I'm talking about, or you guys know where that is?
Sure, you show us the map, that'd be great.
Okay.
Just so you have an idea.
Okay, so can you see this screen?
Not yet. There you go.
Okay. So this is Georgica Cove The green area represents lots that are already preserved, and the yellow highlighted coves are the parcels in question. So as you can see, this would be a really nice assemblage along here.
Looks great.
Will this have a property management plan like normal CPF properties?
Yes, well, actually, the town will only hold an easement. Peconic Land Trust will hold the fee title, and they will have a management plan for this property. Their intention is to maintain this as a maritime grassland.
Who owns the green part? Peconic Land Trust also?
No, so actually, Peconic Land Trust owns two of those parcels. They own these two parcels right here, and then these farther down are owned by Spielberg, but all of them are protected through easements with the village.
In perpetuity?
In perpetuity, yes.
Great.
I just want to mention that I have to recuse myself from the vote because I work with Rick Whalen, so I can't vote.
Okay. So who made a motion?
I made a motion. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, we'll get a letter together for you.
Thanks, Kim.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
Good night.
That was you that seconded?
No, I first did.
You first, okay. And then Dave seconded?
Second, yes. First did. That'll work.
It is now. Okay, I guess new business. We have another request for a letter of support from Natural Resources Department in support of a grant application to fund stormwater abatement and water quality improvement project in Montauk.
Yeah, I think this is basically, they're looking for grant money from Suffolk County to trap storm water before it gets into the harbor at the Westlake launching ramp. That water comes right off the road and the ramp, so.
There's a sample of the letter in your packets, I think.
Their suggested language. You could change.
Yeah, so it's dealing with the stormwater runoff and also it will improve public access.
Right.
So I would be supportive.
Yeah, we're just looking for the trustees to support a project out of our jurisdiction,
Yeah.
given our interest in the harbors in general.
I haven't had an opportunity to look at it, but I'm curious what the stormwater abatement looks like. Do you know?
I saw the application, but I didn't look at it in depth.
Yeah.
You know, it's engineers.
They're
drew
putting
it
in
up.
permeable pavement instead of the cement and asphalt.
Yeah, I
There,
think-
it's supposed to, be green infrastructure.
Well, I think that has holes in it, and they have to be cleaned. If sand accumulates in them, they don't function as desired. So if that's what it is, just pointing it out that it's not
I think
ideal.
I think that's one of the things. I think they might be doing some, grading and trying to get the water to run off to the edges and to sort of, rain garden swales.
And some some, what do you call it, recharge basins.
I'm not sure if it's going to be recharge basins or a rain garden swale type drainage, but it's more than just the permeable
Yeah.
pavement.
Well, they're aiming for what they call bioretention. I wasn't sure exactly what that meant.
It's probably a bioswale, right? Is that what, not sure.
I think so.
Yeah, I think it's, however you want to cut the cake here. Rain garden, bioswale, bioretention. whatever sounds best to the grant.
Yeah, I mean, let's, I just want a letter of support. Let's support it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Seems fine to me. I make a motion to support this.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Go down to committee reports. Acaponic Hog Creek, ZBA notice received regarding 39 Old Fireplace Road. Patrice?
Yeah, so we received the ZBA notice, we received the report, the analyst report. It's called the memorandum, a technical analysis memorandum, abbreviated TAM. Tyler Borsak was the planner who wrote it out. And there's about 3 or maybe 5 houses in this little enclave before it meets Girard. So you turn off of Springs Fireplace Road, you make a right, and that little area in there is where this house is. They want to do what the planner categorizes as aggressive development. They're trying, it's a very small piece of land. I think it's less than 1/3 of an acre, if not maybe 20% of an acre. And they have a large house there already, which exceeds the height limitations. They have a big garage, and they want to enlarge the house. They want to put in walkways. It fronts Gardner's Bay, but I looked at it this morning, and there's virtually no beach there for us to claim jurisdiction. But the septic system, because they've done such intense planning to meet the limitations on the development of this piece of property, they've moved the septic system from a safe zone to 81 feet from the water in Acaponic Harbor. So I wrote this memo because I looked at it, and I do have concerns about it, and I don't know if you share them. But in the beginning of the memo, I talk about our relationship with Christopher Goldberg since 2011, I believe, and the amount of data we've collected on nitrogen in marine waters, and then some of the potential hazards of high nitrogen levels. Then the section 2 pertains to the proposed location for the septic system, which is 81 feet from the tidal wetlands. Interestingly enough, we just walked that exact part of Acaponic Harbor, so we're pretty familiar with it. They claim that the setback is not feasible. It should be 150 feet because it's in the Harbor Protection District, Harbor Protection Overlay District. It should be 150 feet from the upland boundary. And if that's not feasible, then it could be in the closest proximity, practicable distance from the surface waters. Yet when you read the technical analysis memorandum, they mention that the property owner might find a way to site this better because they push the sanitary system to the west and closer to the road and to accommodate their house. So I think that could be problematic, and I'm not implying that this septic will cause any particular harm, but it's just generally not the way to go, given that this is a fragile and important region.
Well, also, there's the issue of precedent that people would be, their neighbors
Exactly.
would be on notice.
Exactly, and that's with the overdevelopment as well. There's 4 neighbors with similar type cottage houses, and you would see this entire area, looking for this kind of relief.
Mhm.
The other concern that I have is the way that they're going to develop this and increase the hard structures on the property, there's not a lot of vegetation there now. There's a couple of large trees. I imagine they would go. But the potential for stormwater runoff is there. And they've designed some basins to catch the water, and they've agreed to, or they will put in a stone gravel driveway. But nonetheless, I've seen the volume of water that comes in certain storms, the volume of fresh water that emanates from houses developed like this, because it's uphill and we're downhill. Accabonac Harbor is downhill from this house. I don't see anything stopping the fresh water getting into the harbor in that place where it's very little circulation.
Water would, I mean, water falls on the property, water is gonna move towards the harbor, whether there's a house there or not, right?
Well, there would
The
be,
house has, I mean, I'm sure they have, it's incorporated into their design, or they will be required to have the roof runoff go into leaching pools.
yeah, 3, the requirement is 3.
So I don't know.
So this is not a huge concern. It's my personally, I would not advocate developing this piece of land to the extent that they propose to do, when there are other options for them to enlarge their house to a reasonable amount. But because it's a long, narrow piece of land, the architect has recommended that they enlarge the house, and then they put walkways with various smaller buildings along the length of the property. It's an unusual development technique, but I just think there's no mitigation for that if that happens, and that is a potential risk.
I mean, I can see the trustees weighing in to, bolster or agree with or stand behind the concerns of the planning department as they relate to impacts on Accabonac Harbor. Can't see getting too deep into the weeds on suggesting how they redesign their house.
The planning department is not that concerned about this. So about fresh water getting into Accabonac Harbor. They think it's a possibility, but they think the catch basins and the revegetation should be sufficient. So I just put this in because it's a concern of mine, but if, trustees don't want to put it in the letter, it's fine.
I don't see a problem raising a concern about it.
Yeah.
Maybe we could bring it to the attention of the ZBA in terms of just, since they're the ones that are tasked with making a decision, just to say that we've observed, that are, without telling them how to do their job, but just to raise these additional concerns that they would have to address and make a decision on.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, just as if, I suppose we're supposed to speak with one voice, but, if somebody came to the hearing and voiced these concerns, I guess the issue is what we as a group what's within our remit.
Well, the planner encouraged me to leave this in because we walked this part of the harbor with the Peconic Estuary program, and we took salinity measurements. And as we got closer to this part where this water will potentially get into the harbor, the salinity went down just from the way the harbor has different gullies in it and man-made ditches and things like that. So I do think it is a concern to me because I've seen this.
Is there a way that, for example, the Acabonic Protection Committee could raise these concerns insofar
I
as?
don't think they've participated in any of these walks that we've taken with the PEP. They didn't, but the other option is to bring it to that hydrogeologist who came up with the plans and just run it by him and say, what do you think? Because he walked, and the lady from Fish and Wildlife, they walked the creek right there. I mean, the harbor, they walked through that part with us. They were observing different things, so.
I mean, the way you've got this written, I mean, it's just really just kind of expresses our concern, I think. I don't think it's too much necessarily.
Yeah, I tried to
No, I
keep it.
agree. It's not like we're asking them to kill the project. We're just expressing our thoughts
Yeah.
on it. And
I agree.
I don't think it's our place to find a solution to those concerns. But the ZBA should consider it.
I agree.
I mean, it could just be framed as observations. They're the ones that are going to be making the decision.
It kind of is, in a way. It's to note that this aggressive level of development, quote, which is a quote from the TAM, increases the volume of fresh water that reaches Acabonic Harbor. There could be negative impacts on the ecology. It's not, that's kind of what, it's fairly neutral. Neutral enough language.
I mean, there's been a lot of time and study and effort put into that harbor, and the development around it needs to be under some pretty tight scrutiny, in my view.
Absolutely. I agree.
I can add that statement you made, Celia, about it could be a slippery slope in terms of opening the doors, the precedent.
That's true.
Anyone want to make a motion?
Motion, send this document to the board to the ZBA.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Patrice. Horseshoe crab survey.
Actually, as an into the ZBA.
I guess I'll take it. We are starting our last cycle for the horseshoe crab monitoring. We're going out tonight in Northwest Creek at 9:34 is high tide. We're 2 days before a full moon. And we'll be monitoring on the full moon and then 2 days after. And we were out at 1 a.m. The last night of the last moon, and Courtney and I saw 2 horseshoe crabs the whole time. I went to bed at 8:30, and then I slept, and then I got up at 12:30, and then we went out. Thank you. It screwed up my whole day. No, it was fine.
What's the high count?
Oh, God, Jim's in the thousands, but
No,
for ours, yeah, like 300. 320, you know, it's like, it's kind of, it's happened, yeah, it does really fall off, so.
Do you use the
This is
transect?
half the count, half the transit.
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, we're dealing with a plover nesting that's
Right,
taken away half of our transect, which is almost 40% of it, or maybe about half.
Right.
So, and that's a very productive part of the transect, but we've been strongly told by the DEC to not go down there at all. Oh, it was Suffolk County Parks, okay.
Could you just define transect? What is-
Transect is just from when we start monitoring to when we end monitoring. It's a transect.
Okay.
It's like the walk. It's the walk along the beach. So we're not, and we put out all our tags, and so we're not really going to see a lot of activity, but we'll have a nice group tonight. And
You got a group? Good.
yeah, we do.
Yeah.
We've got some citizen scientists.
Is this the last one?
This is the last. Well, there's 3 more nights, increasingly later. And then, so that's, and it's been, we put out all our tags. Jim got all his tags out, I believe. So we're just kind of wrapping up the program for this year.
Did you ever find the one, we found a tag, remember when we went that time? Like
We haven't got anything, I don't think, I'm a little worried about what's happening in the federal government.
You haven't,
We're not
haven't
getting
heard-
info back.
you haven't
info back.
heard back yet?
No, we usually get information back
Right.
within a week or whatever, or get a pin or whatever. We're not hearing anything back from the Department of Fish and Wildlife right now.
Maybe an empty desk.
It could be an empty desk. So we're just waiting.
All right. I skipped over agriculture, Suffolk County lease program.
Yeah, could you put that map on the screen, Allison?
Yes.
Try to zero into East Hampton. So we got a notice from Suffolk County Planning Department. And this is if you'll recall, 5 years ago, we were involved with the 10-year review of the Suffolk County Agricultural Lease Program. And it became a bit of there was some controversy around it because the lease sites in East Hampton were concentrated in the Devon area. And there were people that had problems with that, and then other people had problems more generally with the program, and there was a lot of, concern and in some cases opposition to the existing area of leasing. So the Devon area is down there to the east, to the west of Napeague Harbor, where you see those remaining green lease sites. And that was the only area in East Hampton that had lease sites at the time. So as a result of that 10-year review, the lease sites in East Hampton were modified to look like this. And then because the 10-year review was, extensive and there was some controversy involved with it, I'm not sure if the law was changed, but the law that, now states that there will be a review of the lease sites every 5 years. So this is the 5-year review of the last modification to the lease sites, and this is how it exists in East Hampton town. So I was heavily involved with the 10-year review, and I supported this arrangement as it exists now. I expect I've heard I've seen one letter of concern about boating around the lease sites. I expect there'll be other letters that go to the county of concerns about some lease sites in the Devon area. I'm comfortable that the county will deal with that appropriately in consultation with the people who are expressing the concern and the leaseholders. I guess what I'm suggesting is that trustees respond to the county that they're comfortable with the lease sites as they were created in the 10-year review and exist now. So I don't know
How many of these sites are active?
I'm not exactly sure. There's an interactive map on the Suffolk County Agricultural Lease Program website that shows active, pending, inactive. I know there's one active in the northwest sites. There's 6 sites there under Cedar Point.
Yeah, those are active. Yep.
One of them is active.
Oh, that's just one of the 6. Wow.
And one of them was,
6 would be very big then.
yeah, there's 6 sites there.
And only one's active, okay.
And one's
And how large is each site?
Each site is 10 acres.
Right.
Yeah, it's pretty big. I mean, I gotta go around it.
Is it oyster?
And I boat in there all the time.
It's shellfish. It's probably oysters, but they can grow there. Shellfish. There was also one applied for, but when you make an application for a lease, you suggest 3 sites that you would accept. And somebody put one of those in their application, but they also put 2 others in their application that are over under Shelter Island there, between North Haven and Shelter Island. So I don't know if they got it yet, or if they got it, which one they got. Some of the big squares over in, the Acabonic area, the one down off Fresh Pond that looks bigger than the others, that triangular piece under Cartwright Shoal there, those are pre-existing oyster grants from the 1800s that were never deactivated or taken back by the county. One down off Fresh Pond was bought by the Devon Yacht Club to keep it out of production. The one farthest east, that's funny shape with that little
Finger.
panhandle coming off to it, belongs to the Rattray family. That's a remnant of an old Edwards family lease. And I'm not sure who owns the large ones off Acabonic. They may be sort of remnants of Long Island Oyster Farms lease holdings that the ownership is still being, looked at. I'm not sure, but they're inactive. None of those old grants are actively being used now, as far as I understand. I don't think the Devon Yacht Club is doing anything. They said they might grow oysters, but grow them on the bottom without floating gear, which is what they have a problem with, because it conflicts with their sailing. And the was it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 leases on the right side of the area down there in that peak. 3 or 4 of them, maybe 5, are active or are leased. Whether they're growing anything on them now or not, I'm not sure. And I think one of the sites up in Gardiner's Island, to the west of Gardiner's Island, I think there are 6 sites there. One of them, I believe, is leased, and I believe one more has been applied for. Maybe more than that, but so probably half or less than half of the available sites in East Hampton are leased.
Now, isn't it like they only make a few available each year?
Yeah.
It's like a slow progressive
Right.
process.
Yeah, I don't know what the figures are, but of the entire acreage in the bay, there's a very small amount of acreage that's available for leasing, and of that acreage, they're only allowing a small percentage of that to be leased each year. So I think there's only maybe 5 or 7, something like that, leases. Maybe it's more than that, but not very many available every year.
Mhm.
Thanks, John.
So I guess, is everybody comfortable with the trustees weighing in that the trustees are comfortable with the lease in this 5-year interim review, comfortable with the leases as they exist?
Yes, yes.
All right. Thanks, John. Next, we'll do the mosquito larvae survey.
Not too many mosquitoes. Not too many mosquito larvae. At least as of last, when was it exactly we went out? It was
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago, right?
As of then.
As of then.
This morning, we went out again, and there were quite a few. So, can you put that picture of the,
Finally got hot, right?
Is it because of the humidity, do you think, that the population has increased so much?
it's not that the population really increases, it's just the conditions are either right or not right for the mosquitoes to lay their eggs or the eggs to hatch. And, as the summer goes on and it gets warmer and it rains a little bit more, creates more pools of water, found that the numbers increase. And it's been a cool spring up to now, but I mean, it really only started to get hot yesterday. So I don't know if that triggered it, but so the reds represent, relatively high numbers. I'm not sure what the numbers were. I found numbers, maybe between 15 and maybe 60 larvae in a dip, which is, relatively high. I mean, sometimes you'll find the whole cup practically full, and then it's just the numbers are off the charts, but didn't see anything like that. But quite often you may only see, 1 or 2 larvae in a dip. And I think the Suffolk vector control probably has a cutoff between, not enough to warrant treatment of the marsh at maybe 10 to a dip, something like that. So we clearly exceeded that today. Those numbers were consistent throughout the walk from north to south.
So they're going to spray this week? Should we put that on our website?
Yeah,
I
probably.
think we should.
Who's going to?
I'll tell Susan.
You will? Okay.
You can tell her to check the vector control to get the how they accurately describe it. Usually put out a
Vector
statement.
Is this unusual for this, for that area at this time of year? Is it unusual?
Not
No.
necessarily.
No.
They were very small generally, so they had just hatched.
They're hungry. So should we include anything on our website other than the days that they're going to spray and that they're going to use the drop pellets?
Well, I think we should just pretty much reflect what vector control puts out. I think we should editorialize
Okay.
on that.
They usually send something out, like today is Monday, they'll probably send something out today, actually. But they usually say for acarbonic, pending. So,
Well, I don't think you'll see that this week.
yeah, I think there needs to be some other documentation.
Check, acarbonic check. But, they will only spray the hot spots. That's
And they're not spraying, are they? They're dropping
dropping the pellets, yeah.
granules.
It's by drone or plane?
A helicopter.
The other salt marshes get sprayed.
I remember.
They're all treated the same way.
They all get the drop
They all
pellets.
get the pellets. And the pellets are a combination of methoprene and BTI.
Right.
It's unfortunate that they don't have just BTI because this treatment, what we found today could have been successfully treated with just BTI.
Can they get that? Or
I don't know if they can or
It would
not.
make a huge difference if we could eliminate the methaprene as much as possible.
It would, but yeah, it would.
It's not our call, but
You guys want to be dropping some dunks that you got.
We say that every time we go out. It might be, the conditions might be right for only being able to treat with BTI rarely or
Right.
seldom. So this just, this is my,
I remember they used to treat with BTI, but this was before the pellets. And then they'd add the methaprene. It's two different, two different chemicals. But now with this combination, it's all together. Right? It's the pellet, it's all together.
well, it's some pelletized BTI, it's some pelletized methaprene, all same.
Maybe they have to carry one thing for all the marshes and they're gonna spray, so they don't want to switch over. Can't imagine.
Well, like I said, I mean, the conditions under which you would only need the BTI might be fairly seldom that you would find this particular condition. You don't necessarily find only small stage 1 larvae almost exclusively. You usually find a mixture of stage 1, maybe 2, some 3s. It's, especially as the season goes on, you usually see more developed larvae, but they're mixed in with small larvae.
Yeah.
So have to buy this stuff in a certain way, and it might not be feasible to just stockpile BTI, then you might only use it once in the season. I'm not sure about that.
Yeah, it's really cheaper too, I mean, less expensive to get one. Those chemicals are expensive. And if you just got one, but I think they might load the helicopter up, send it out, and they don't have the ability to like distribute it singularly and then other marshes together. So logistics might be complicated.
Yeah, I have a feeling that's the reason.
Well, thank you for doing that, going through the marshes.
Yeah, thank you. Wow. That's you needed to, right? So,
2 weeks ago.
John, will you send that information so that we can add it to the website?
Sorry?
Will you be sending that information to us so we can add it to the website tomorrow? You guys want to add it to the website tomorrow, correct?
I've got to find out what the county puts out first.
Yeah.
Okay, and then you'll send it if you get it.
I'll find out what the county puts out.
What is the website where they would put out that information? Do you know?
I don't know. Patrice's.
I'm on a
looks at that
mailing
stuff.
list,
Uh-huh.
but it doesn't tell you what Accabonac subject to, because they put it out on Monday. Like, it'll be in my mailbox tomorrow. Just say pending. I guess it's a chain to do it, but,
vector control?
sorry?
Is it called vector control? What's that?
No.
Vector control.
Vector control, Suffolk County.
Vector is mosquitoes are vectors for certain
Yeah.
diseases.
I guess vectors are
West Nile
squares.
virus and
Yeah,
things.
so-
The mosquito's a vector.
Got it.
We usually contact that man that works, I forget his name.
I went echo.
Yeah, and just ask him and,
They'll put out a statement. I've seen it like in the reported different ways, but I don't have checked.
So if you email me, then I'll send it to Susan. She can put it on the website.
yeah.
You get that email.
Well, I'm
Tell
over
us
for
when
that email.
specifically.
This Accabonac Protection Committee put out something today.
Okay.
Well, I went out with Glenn
Yeah.
Vincent and he sent this to the VPC.
Yeah, so they put it out, so we could kind of copy what they wrote. It doesn't have that much detail.
Yeah, I don't think Glenn knows any more than I just
No,
said.
definitely not.
By the way, just vis-à-vis trying to communicate to the county about limiting the use of methaprene, I mean, yes, it is their call, but I suppose it might help if they were aware that we're aware, that there are these two different chemicals that are being dropped. I mean, it seems to me that it would be helpful if we could somehow communicate that it would be better to limit the methaprene.
We can
That's a
call
battle that's been
Tom.
going on for
Yeah,
decades.
They're very aware.
Okay.
In fact, I mean, a little bit of history here, Tom Iwanecko is the head of vector control now. I don't know how long he's been there, maybe 10 years, maybe more, I don't know. But he's what's the word? He's the opposite of the past director. The past
Narragansett?
director was spraying this stuff to kill the mosquitoes. Don't talk to me about
He was spraying my
stuff.
house.
Oh, there's-
And I called him up and I said, "You're spraying my dog." He said, "It's okay." And then he sprayed, the helicopter would spray the osprey nest in
Yeah,
Accabonac.
Down in Lazy Point also.
And I
Same
have
thing.
pictures of him spraying the osprey nest, and he said, they don't mind.
Yeah.
He was a hard guy.
And Tom is the polar opposite.
Not bad.
He's very cooperative. He's been very cooperative with this program that we've been doing since 2017, actually.
Didn't he work on that restoration, the wetland
Yeah, he
restoration?
did a big wetland restoration project in Northeim Reserve.
And so did the other
Sayville.
guy. He was on that,
Oh,
because he sent me his resume on LinkedIn and included that as an,
But Tom is, he wants to really work with the community. He's worked with the through the nature preserve,
oh,
not the nature preserve, the
Conservancy?
Nature Conservancy and Accabonac Protection Committee and the Natural Resource Department and the trustees.
yeah, we had a meeting at Rena's house with a lot of people from the town were there and county government, and Tom had a poster that showed how much money he saved that year by doing the sampling, which you did.
That was one of the first years. we did.
Yeah. And it was a huge amount of money.
Well, transitioning to the pellets, you have more control over what you're using.
Yep.
Yeah, it's mostly also being able to just know where the hot spots of where the
Right.
breeding's taking place and have the helicopter just follow those dots.
Mhm.
Otherwise, they just
Blanket it.
brush, you know.
I still have the picture they took at Rena's house. I can send it to the committee and see. Everyone. Okay.
All right, thanks. Conic Estuary Partnership, Shoreline Adaptation Summit, fact sheet.
Oh, okay. I sent this out by email and it's really general. So I'm not getting this was about permitting and mostly it was agencies that issue permits and how sort of we're not following, well, we could follow best practices. We don't really issue that many permits, but like DEC and other places. And so they're talking about code and policy updates. So this was the one that we went to in person, and Francis, John. But there was also another part of this, which was the local government working group, which was another meeting like the next day. And they talked about a couple of things that I just wanted to make you aware of. One is that the Peconic Estuary Partnership is part of the EPA's National Estuary Program. It's federally funded. And it's part of EPA, and their funding was pulled back from funding cuts. So there is a bill that's been proposed, and it's got bipartisan support to restore the funding to estuary, that's a national estuary.
Didn't that happen? Didn't Nick Lallotta sort of claim victory? Because, didn't that happen already, or am I missing
No,
something?
Nick Lallotta is, represents CD1, and he is one of the people that are opposing.
One of the sponsors.
Yeah, one of the sponsors, and there are several, because it's a national program, so there are people from Oregon, there's people from, California, and it's not just the Peconic Estuary Program, it's all the estuary programs. So I did contact Nick's office today, and they sent me the legislation, and I can send it to you. You can see it hasn't gone through the committees at all yet. It's just, I think it's going to pass. But what our local PEP is doing is they're setting up some community communications. There are 4 of them, that 2 of them have already occurred further up island. But there's one out in Southold and one in Springs. There's one in Sag Harbor, one in Springs. And they have not been set up yet. So that has not been scheduled yet, but I think that will be interesting to go to, trying to get a location, help them find a meeting place for this to take place. They wanted Ashwa Hall, but that seems to be booked pretty solidly. So maybe the library will be acceptable. That will come on the calendar, and that will be important to go to and show your support and discuss this. So I will send you that legislation that you just got. And then the other one that came up was a memorandum in support of enabling pollution reducing septic system upgrades. And that's a New York State bill. It's passed through the Assembly and the Senate. It's waiting for the governor's signature, which happens every year. She'll sign them on December 24th. So that one, because these septic systems are rather expensive, the state will pay 75% of the cost of a new septic.
Do they still require homeowners to front the funds? In other words, this is reimbursement after the homeowner has fronted the cost, generally speaking. Is that still true?
What do you mean?
In other words,
I think all of them.
in other words, people have to be in a financial position, homeowners have to be in a financial position to front the costs of the new septic system and then get reimbursed.
They get reimbursed, but it seems to be like if you have an approved grant, that the vendor would accept that because they know the payments are coming. I haven't heard of anyone having to prepay, but you might have to prepay for the design work. But and so we have the town grants, we have the county grants, and the state grant has been much lower. So the town is like 15,000. So the county is like 15,000. I don't know what the town is. This one is going to pay 75% of the cost of the septic up to $25,000. This is New York State.
They're about twice that.
I mean, they're really expensive, especially in areas that are near the harbor. There's a lot of water in the ground and dewatering, and pumps need to be set up correctly.
How many providers are there actually who build these systems? Is it a relatively small group? There are a lot of providers?
Well, the providers, you have the engineers that design them, and then you have the people who put the systems in the ground. There are a couple, and you can find out the names of who people have used recently and they recommend. But when the funds, I know some people who do this work, and when the funds dried up, when the county had no money, they weren't, really actively supporting themselves through this kind of work, but now they're back to it. So you can go online and find a number of vendors.
The program in East Hampton is run through the Natural Resource Department.
Right.
Melissa McCarran is the lead person.
Melissa?
She's out on paternity leave now, so I think Samantha, I can't remember her last name.
Samantha Klein.
Not Samantha Klein. A new Samantha in Natural Resources was working with Melissa on this. Or Kim Shaw.
Right. I tried to fill out, they have a new online system, right? You're supposed to put in all your permits and stuff online. So I put mine online. And then I called her up, Samantha, and I said, I can't, it's not working. She goes, oh, it's not ready yet. So I have to do it on paper.
Oh, no.
But
Practice.
but they're really helpful. The trick is getting the right engineer. I mean, I think that's right. So
Anything else on this?
I think that was all I had from them. Oh, in that local government meeting, they had some updates. And one of them is a project researching no discharge zones of the Peconics, conducting interviews on pump out stations, boats, and documenting trends on the number and size of vessels. I was going to ask Jim, are we participating in that?
I think that would go through the Marine Patrol.
Okay.
Pretty much. And trustees for the pump out boats, but Marine Patrol for the fixed pump out stations in the harbor, in 3 Mile Harbor and Lake Montauk.
So that was interesting. And they also say that they're testing now for microplastics in the Peconics, and that will be complete by December 2025. And Dr. Gobler's HAB work is ongoing. And then they mentioned that Accabonac Harbor Salt Marsh Adaptation and Resiliency Teams, final design is underway.
We're aware of that.
So it's all lining up. I mean, they get the funding restored, and the project is ready to go. But that was the only things I wanted to point out.
Okay, thanks, Patrice.
You're welcome.
Thanks. Next, water quality, Wainscott Pond blue-green algae counts.
Speaking of HABs, yeah, Dr. Gobler's been testing in Wainscott Pond since for a few weeks now. Pauline, can you put those graphs up there?
I can, but I'm not.
Allison.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Allison.
You see it?
Coming up. Yep.
So that's so far this year. So you'll see it's 3, 2, 170, 120, 350, 220. Can you scroll down to the 2024 data? This 2024, and you'll see that at this point, we're about at the 629.24 level. You can see that, well, you can't see them all, but they were in the hundreds and less than 100. So this year we're in the 200 and 300 levels. So looks like we're starting, and we've had a pretty cool spring. So regardless, it looks like we're starting off with higher levels than we did last year. So I'm expecting that big jump that you see in 2024, which looks like it happened right around July to be what we're about to see in our next couple of readings.
What is the remediation that can be done?
I don't know. It's, it's funny that, I mean, he's also testing the two small ponds up by Hog Creek, Swan Pond and Pond Lane Pond. And then we started testing those two years ago, I think, because people were seeing, discoloration in the water, and it turned out there were high levels in one of the ponds, and then the next year there were high levels in the other pond, and this year I haven't gotten any data showing that they've exceeded the baseline. So basically there hasn't been anything going on in
Maybe
those
with
two
the hot
ponds.
temperatures coming.
And there's other ponds in town that, I don't know if they're being tested, but we don't get, you don't get reports of concern from people by, what they see in the pond. So it's hard to know why Wainscott Pond is sort of this such a high producer of blue-green algae. It's been in Georgica Pond and been of great concern, but it's only been in a few small pockets. And I don't think there's been any in Georgica Pond in the last 3 or 4 years.
But Wainscott Pond has a long history of being totally surrounded by agriculture.
They never open
Mhm.
Although the field it's in has been fallow for decades, right?
Yeah, but it has, 100 years and more of what's laying at the bottom of
Well,
that pond.
I wonder what they're seeing in some of those ponds in Virginia that are surrounded
Some
by
of them are pretty bad.
fields.
Well, now that there's public access, it'll draw more attention. There'll be, we'll try and help.
We may want to start considering what we can do to start remediation.
I thought one thing we could think about doing is vegetative buffer around Winston Pond. I don't
It
know.
would have to go on town property.
Yeah, work with the town, and try to get
On the
some.
new piece of land that they bought.
Well, around the pond itself, like in Georgica Pond, there's lawns that go down to the pond, and then there's this big push for years to get people to plant 30-foot of vegetative buffer there, bushes and other vegetation that isn't cut or treated at all, in hopes that, that runoff into the pond will be mitigated by that buffer material. I think, this might be something worth considering for Wainscott Pond. I don't know if it's the answer, but I don't think it might be contribute to the health of the pond.
So you think that buffer will prevent water from getting into the pond?
No, I don't think it'll prevent water from getting into the pond, but it might take up some of the negative nutrients that are contributing to, the excess nutrients that may be contributing to the blooms of the blue-green algae, better than the cut field is doing now.
Wonder what kind of vegetation would be best for that?
I don't know, wait till Jim comes back, I'll find out.
This sounds like a dumb question, but is there any way that would be helpful and not harmful to somehow connect the two ponds or somehow enable more flow to come into Wainscott Pond? The Georgica and Wainscott?
Yeah, I think that's impractical. You have to tunnel through a lot of expensive property.
But we've learned a lot at Georgica that can be used at Wainscott
Yeah.
Pond. There's the harvester, for example.
Yeah, I don't know what kind of macroalgae grows
You're right.
in Wainscott
Yeah,
Pond.
I think we have to conversation with Dr. Gobler.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no way to open it up in any way?
Private property in between.
Okay.
We talked, with our ponds committee, we talked about remediation, and we were talking about how that was kind of one of our focuses this year with Gobler to do more. And you can see he's already doing it every 2 or 3 days. He's taking samples. So hopefully he can help us come up with some solutions that we can get people in the community, especially, like a Friends of Georgica group around Wainscott Pond that could, all be involved and help with that.
So he'll be collecting data there this summer, right? And then when we meet with him to review the draft, maybe we can have a discussion.
Yeah, absolutely.
Around the options. Has anyone ever tried like some way of agitating the water, like bubblers or some kind of water circulation?
Didn't they do that in Lake Agawam? They did that in Lake Agawam in Southampton. I'm not sure. I mean, that was even worse than Wainscott Pond, I think. But I'm not sure. Not sure if they did, and if they did, how it was.
Maybe we could send an inquiry to the Southampton Town Trustees about it.
I think it was very expensive, though. I think the village might have done that, paid for it.
I asked a pond.
And I think Gobler was involved in that. So
Oh, he was? I asked a pond maintenance guy who maintains ponds in East Hampton that are rather large. And we're talking about Town Pond. He suggested these kinds of bubblers that they don't break the water. They're just, because he uses them in his ponds. They just are under the water and they move the water, but it's not like distracting with a fountain or something like that. And he said that might be an option.
There was a proposal to put a giant filter in Wainscott Pond. Never really went. There's a lot of, engineering considerations to anything mechanical. It's pretty remote. You need power to run these things, run any kind of mechanical systems.
All right, move on to administrative payment of the bills. East Hampton Marina, $151 and $153 for fuel. Seacoast Enterprises Associates, $10.99 for boat supplies. Montauk Marine Basin, $140.19 fuel and boat supplies. And Riverhead Building Supply, $288.42 for boat supplies.
Make a motion to pay the bills.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Anybody have anything else they want to talk about?
There is going to be an airing of the film, The Bonnickers. It's going to be shown at the Springs Library this weekend, I believe. I will send you the date. I didn't catch it, but I heard it was a very interesting.
Great, yes.
Yeah, you in it?
You should check it out, yeah.
Oh, okay. So do you know what day it's going to be?
No, I don't know. I know we're having a screening at the Life Saving Station in Amagansett in October, the last day. So, yeah, so you should see it there too. It's worth seeing, definitely. All right, motion to second.
All in favor?
Aye.